All right, are we ready, Missy? All right. Thank you, Missy, and welcome. This is the Port of Olympia Commission meeting, the first meeting of January 2025. It's today is actually January 13th, 2025. It's 5:30 p.m. and I'm officially calling this meeting to order. Happy New Year to everyone. I hope all of you are still on track to fulfill those New Year's resolutions. But we have some business to attend here this evening. So we have an agenda in front of us. Is there a motion to accept the agenda?
Motion to approve. Second. I have a question. Chair.
Yeah.
Is it possible to take comment on the consent calendar, or does something need to be pulled off if we want to make commissioner comment?
I would suggest that if you want to amend the agenda to remove something from the consent agenda, you make the motion and we get a second and then we can discuss it.
Okay. I am not going to do that. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve this evening's agenda. Is there any other discussion or comments? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed? All right, we have an agenda. Oh, geez, we missed the Pledge of Allegiance. Gee, this is a new year. All right. Commissioner Sanders, would you lead us in Pledge of Allegiance?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you very much for that. We already have an agenda, so our next topic is Executive Director report. Executive Director Smith, all yours.
Thank you, Commission President Ayal. All right, first things first, as everybody else has been saying, Happy New Year. Welcome to 2025 at the Port of Olympia. We are very grateful to all of those who hung with us and worked with us in our transition year of 2024, and we're very grateful for everybody's continued support and really look forward to all we're going to be able to accomplish with this commission in 2025. We have a couple of new employees we're very excited about. On the left is Megan Folkers. She is our new environmental specialist. Megan comes to us from the Aberdeen Hoquiam area. She's a graduate of Evergreen State College, and she has a focus on stormwater management. And she's going to be a big part of helping with our environmental compliance efforts across the port and really helping us with succession planning for the folks who currently do all that environmental compliance work. So we're very excited to have Megan. Also, Mike Reed is here as our new Director of Community and Economic Development. Mike is joining us in the meeting as well. And as some may know, Mike was at the port for 10 years and then spent the past 8 years at the City of Olympia as their Economic Development Director. And we are very excited to have him back, and can't believe we stole him from the Port of Olympia, from the City of Olympia, but we're very excited. We also have made offers to a couple of folks for some open positions that are critical to the port, and they both accepted. So on February 3rd, we're going to have a new Marina and Facilities Maintenance foreperson, and we're also going to have a new Accounts Payable Coordinator, and those are two key things we need to have filled. So we're very excited that we're growing the team and at such high caliber of people. Right. Next up, this past week, many of the commissioners and staff attended the Thurston County Chamber Forum on the state of the community. It was a great event, and it included comments from all local leaders, including Lacey Mayor Andy Ryder, Tumwater Mayor Debbie Sullivan, actually a stand-in for Mayor Sullivan, Olympia Mayor Dante Payne, Yelm Mayor Joe DePinto, Tenino Mayor Dave Watterson, and Thurston County Commission Chair Ty Menser. It was great to get their insights on where each of their jurisdictions is currently and all the things that they're hoping to do in the next year. Today also marks the beginning of the state legislative session. And it's convening for a long session because they're looking at a 2-year biennial budget. Our lobbyist, Kelsey Hulse, is working with us on the ports priorities, primarily some assistance for the Bud Inlet cleanup. But we're also supporting our legislative partners here in Thurston County on the shared legislative agenda. And that includes funding for Bud Inlet cleanup as a priority, also funding for the Deschutes estuary restoration, and funding for other law enforcement, housing, and transportation priorities. And this coming week is the governor's inaugural ball. This is something that the Thurston County Chamber picked up from a committee that was sort of disbanding. And so the chamber is making sure that this important event happens, and the board is proud to be supporting it through some cash contributions as well as some in-kind contributions, and look forward to being able to attend with some of our commissioners. And as always, we value here all the opportunities for folks to come and tell us what you're thinking, and is it for?
Thank you, Executive Director Smith. Is there any questions or comments? Commission?
I'll just make a comment. I want to commend Director Smith. The consent agenda did include a modest raise just in keeping with kind of the rest of the staff, but we've gotten through this year. We have a full team now on board. We have an economic development and community development director, and Missy, those minutes are coming in timely. So I think we're definitely ready for this next year. Thank you.
Here, I second that. Director Smith. That was what I was gonna pull off the consent agenda, just to make a comment that I think that you have exceeded expectations in your role as executive director, and the staff and our whole team is noticeably different, and our community relationships, so we're lucky to have you.
Very nice. All right, so let's move on to public comment. Individual public comments are limited to 3 minutes per person. Members of the public may comment on agenda items and other port business. Guidelines for public comment can be found in the commission rules in resolution 2022-09, Article 6. Comments should be directed to the commission as a whole and should not include comments about individual port staff or members of the public. All speakers shall be courteous in language and demeanor, and shall confine remarks to those facts that are germane and relevant to the question or issue under discussion. So thank you. I have a few people who have signed up for public comment. First up is Bob Jacobs. Mr. Jacobs, you have the floor for 3 minutes.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Bob Jacobs, and I live at 720 Governor Stevens Avenue in Olympia. I'm going to start off the new year by sharing concerns about the airport master plan update process. I'm relying on information from Jan Witt, who has encyclopedic knowledge about airport matters and extensive archives. Please pay attention to her submissions. Here are my concerns briefly. 1, consideration of a SEPA checklist is scheduled for after adoption of the master plan. This is backwards. SEPA reviews are intended to inform your work to amend and vote on the plan. 2, public input is not to be considered in finalizing the plan, just, quote, memorialized in an appendix. Why have a hearing if input is to be ignored? 3, the proposed procedure is to essentially go forward with the draft from 2 years ago. Things have changed in the intervening 2 years. In particular, you are a new, larger commission. You should be adopting your plan. 4, the plan is to go forward with SEPA review piecemeal as construction projects start. This is unacceptable, and I believe contrary to the intent of a recent state Supreme Court opinion. 5, the draft reflects aviation industry input, but not public input. What about the petition that 500 residents of Thurston County have signed calling for a cessation of growth at the Olympia Airport? What about your constituents who live under flight paths, whose health is strongly affected by noise pollution, particulate pollution, and lead pollution? 6, the aviation industry is well organized and well funded. The public, not so. You need to work hard to achieve a balanced plan that serves all interests. 7, more time is needed for public review and comment of the draft. It is very large. The early chapters were released during the holidays, and the commercial aviation feasibility study, which is to be part of the plan, is still not available. I strongly urge this commission to take charge of this process and do it right. There are serious flaws in the approach suggested by staff. Please extend the review period, consider the welfare of your constituents, and seek a balanced plan that fairly considers the interests of both the community and the industry. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobs. Next on the list is Jan Witt.
My name is Jan Witt, and I live in Southeast Olympia. The volume of information contained in chapters 1 to 6 of the new draft master plan update is large and complex. The commercial aviation feasibility study appendix was not available on the port site website until late this afternoon, I think about 4 p.m. Additionally, I learned this afternoon that a SEPA checklist in conjunction with the master plan update will be available for public review next week. That's very appreciated. However, given the huge volume and complex nature of the master plan update, as well as the additional feasibility, commercial aviation feasibility study, which was issued this afternoon, and the checklist to be issued next week, additional time for review of the documents, as well as time to formulate comprehensive responses is warranted. Please extend the comment deadline and move the date of the hearing forward. Would appreciate that.
Earlier hearing? Was the date?
I'm sorry, move it later. I misspoke. Thank you. Yeah, and I assume that we will have an opportunity to comment after the advisory on this issue.
Yes.
Okay, thank you for your attention.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Witt. Carla Wolfsburg is next on the list.
Good evening, commissioners. My name is Carla Wolfsburg. I live in Tumwater. So as you know, today the 30-day public comment period opened for the airport master plan. And I have heard the comments of Mr. Jacobs and Ms. Witt. And I must say that I would agree with what they're saying because this is a very important process to all of us. But 30 days, in my opinion, is woefully inadequate. I don't know if you've all had a chance to look at those 7 chapters, but there are diagrams. It's complex and it's just loaded with information. So what I would like to see, not only that this 30-day period be extended significantly, but that we have an open house. And there are open houses where you can have all these plans at different stages and stations, and you can visit the stations and ask your questions and really give the public a chance to really understand what's in there. I think it's real important to us because, you know, we are going to we are going to be the people who have to live with increased noise or pollution or whatever. So it's to our benefit and to all of you, your benefit, you live here too, for us to really understand what's in that plan. So an open house would be really, I think, very helpful. And I've been to some of them, and I've got to say that I've been to the one at the City of Tumwater. They did a really great job. And they had staff at each station. And that really helped because then they summarized it all at the end, what the public comments were at each station. So it's a really great process that I would hope to encourage the port to use. And I just learned about the SEPA checklist, and I think that's really great that the public is going to get that in advance. But of course, this would also really impact the amount of time that we're all going to need to really understand the plan. So even the SEPA checklist could be included in an open house, so we really understand that as well. So I would just like to encourage you to think about that before you take any kind of vote on the master plan update. And I hope that we all can benefit from this. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wolfsberg. Is there anyone online who would like to make public comment?
Oh, yes, I got Lee Reiner.
All right, Ms. Reiner, you have the floor.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Happy New Year to everyone. Everyone is very excited that we will go forward with more transparency in 2025. And we're all looking forward to that. I know that earlier in this meeting, there was some discussion about the Chamber of Commerce meeting with the Port of Olympia officials. You know, to me, that constitutes lobbying. And essentially, we have the business interests of the Port of Olympia constantly lobbying the port commissioners. But what about environmental groups that have equally motivated interests to keep the air clean, to keep the water clean for future generations, for the next 7 generations? Have we been allowed that opportunity to lobby like the Chamber of Commerce has? I don't think so. I know this discussion now, I think it's a wonderful idea of an open house for the airport master plan. And like was just mentioned, bringing the SEPA, State Environmental Policy Act, into that open house so that there can be a robust discussion about these environmental issues. As has been mentioned before, SeaTac, the airport up north, did a comprehensive study regarding the emissions from planes flying, helicopters flying over the heads of people. I know my husband's cousin lived right near SeaTac, and many of the people in the neighborhood were constantly dying of cancer. And the emissions from that source, the airplane emissions constantly raining down on their heads. So you can easily understand why so many of us care about this airport issue and why we are begging for an open house so that we can more clearly look at the details, how this is going to affect our families, our little kids, our relatives that we love dearly. As was mentioned, this is the long haul. We're looking at many generations coming down the line, and we want to see this airport master plan done right. We want you to hear our opinions, just like the Chamber of Commerce constantly is drilling into you more growth, more expansion, more business. Yeah, but what about more safety for future generations? That is our concern, and that is our plea to you. Please vote for more transparency in 2025. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reiner. Anyone else like to make public comment? All right, thank you, Missy. Then let's move on with the agenda. Next up is the consent calendar. On the consent calendar, executive director salary, lease approval for DES airport parking, lease approval for Rutledge Corn Maze, and minutes from meetings on November 25th and December 9th of 2024. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar?
I move to approve the consent calendar. Thank you.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent calendar. Calling for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent calendar is approved. Moving on, we have nothing under the pending issues or business. So we'll move on to the action calendar, which we have one item, Port of Olympia Citizens Advisory Committee. resolution amendment and member team extensions. Alex Smith.
Sure. This is, as you may recall, there was an advisory on the December 9th meeting. But tonight we are coming back to ask for action on this. And again, it's to update the POCAC resolution and reappoint POCAC members. So the Port of Olympia Citizens Advisory Committee is governed by Resolution 2024-08. It limits POCAC members to serving 2 consecutive 3-year terms. And POCAC members would like the ability to serve more than that. Also, some current POCAC members' terms were affected by COVID and they weren't able to participate for the full 3 years. And so they'd like to have their terms extended. So what we are proposing is Resolution 2025-02. It amends Section 8 of the prior resolution. And that section is all about the term of the POCAC members. And there would be 2 primary changes. First is to change the number of consecutive terms a member can serve from 2 to 4. And it gives the commission discretion to appoint, reappoint, or extend the term of POCAC members to address extenuating circumstances. When we discussed this at the advisory, we had recommended eliminating the limit on terms POCAC members could serve. And the commission feedback was that they thought it was a good idea to have a term limit essentially, but to perhaps have that be 4 terms instead of 2. So we made that change for the commission. Also, the POCAC has requested extensions of terms of some of the members. So specifically position 1, Joel Hansen, the request is to extend that his term through the end of 2027. Similarly for position 2, Debbie Patton, the request is to extend her term to the end of 2025. For new members, there's also requests to extend the positions 9, 11, 12, and 14 through to the end of 2027. And in your materials, there's a chart of current POCAC members and without this change, when their terms would end, and it's more than half of the POCAC members would be stepping off at the end of 2024. So we have 2 suggested motions. The first is to approve Resolution 2025-02, extending the number of consecutive terms POCAC members can serve, and giving the commission authority to appoint, reappoint, and extend POCAC member terms in extenuating circumstances. And then the second motion is to extend the terms of the POCAC members in positions 1, 9, 11, 12, and 14 through December 31st, 2027, and extend the term of the POCAC member in position 2 through December 31st, 2025. Happy to answer any questions.
Questions, comments, motions?
Move to approve Resolution 2025-02, extending the number of consecutive terms POCAC members can serve and giving the commission authority to appoint, reappoint, and extend POCAC member terms in extenuating circumstances.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve Resolution 2025-02, which extends the number of consecutive terms POCAC members can serve and giving the commission authority to appoint, reappoint, and extend POCAC members' terms in extenuating circumstances. Is there any further discussion by the commission?
I just want to acknowledge the POCAC and its membership. We have Joel here today, but and Quentin. It's you guys have been bearing with us as we form a new norm on the POCAC, and I think extending your terms will allow you to continue to do your good work. So thank you.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries.
We move to extend the terms of the POCAC members in positions 1, 9, 11, 12, and 14 through December 31st, 2027, and extend the terms of the POCAC member in position 2 through December 31st, 2025. Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second to extend the terms of the POCAC members in positions 1, 9, 11, 12, and 14 through December 31st, 2027. Extend the term of the POCAC member in position 2 through December 31st, 2025. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. All right, congratulations, POCAC members. Moving on to action other calendar. surplus property disposal dollar limit resolution 2025-01. Alex Smith, Executive Director.
All right, thank you, Commissioner. We've got three essentially housekeeping things for you on the action other calendar, and we'll try to just power through them, but they are items that the commission typically addresses in its first meeting of the calendar year. So this first one has to do with surplus property disposal. Again, this is an action other, so we're asking for your approval tonight, and it's an approval of the annual surplus property dollar value limit. So the surplus property dollar value limit is property is anything that is owned by the port. This statute allows the commission to annually authorize the executive director to sell and convey port property that is below a specific value limit. The 2024 surplus property dollar value limit was $22,000. By statute, the Department of Revenue annually adjusts the limit. So for 2025, the annually adjusted limit from the Department of Revenue is now $20,830. And per port policy, prior to disposing of any property under this limit, an itemized list of the eligible property is prepared. It's sent to the executive director for certification, and then the commission is notified that the property is no longer needed for port district purposes and will be surplus. So this does not apply to port property above that limit, and also it does not apply to port real property. It's only port personal property. So we have a suggested motion, and that is to approve resolution 2025-01, authorizing the executive director to, in calendar year 2025, dispose of individual items of surplus port personal property valued less than $22,830. Any answer questions?
Questions, comments? No. So just how is this proposed change going to I guess improve our efficiency? Is that kind of the main goal we're looking at here?
I think it's to allow us to be able to dispose of this and not have to bring individual items of less than this value to the commission. And it's, I think it's by statute, we have to do this by resolution every year. So we're just trying to reduce the amount of items that we bring to.
Okay, so are there safeguards in place so that certain items can't be undervalued or disposed of improperly?
I think so. I think it's, we've got one person who's been doing this for decades now and knows the rules very thoroughly, and she's very careful in preparing the list of property. It is sent to the director team for evaluation in advance of going to the executive director for certification. So we try our best to make sure that nothing gets disposed of inappropriately or value that is below what it should be.
Great. Thank you. Any other comments? Yes.
Well, just that if this is ministerial to raise it up to the DOR kind of as adjusted limit, is this the kind of resolution we could do on the consent calendar in future years? It's something I'd ask you to think about.
Yes, yeah. Appreciate that very much.
All right. Would anyone like to give public comment on the surplus property disposal dollar limit? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion if there's someone was so inclined.
I move to approve resolution 25-01, authorizing the executive director to, in calendar year 2025, dispose of individual items of surplus port personal property valued less than $22,830.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve resolution 2025-01, authorizing the executive director to, in calendar year 2025, dispose of individual items of surplus port personal property valued less than $22,830. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Next item on the action other calendar is the annual commission meeting schedule. Alex Smith again.
Apologies, this is sort of the Alex show. But again, this is one of those housekeeping ministerial things at the beginning of the calendar year. Typically the board commission adopts its schedule for the year. Again, this is action other. And want you to adopt the 2025 regular meeting schedule and work session schedule. We want to make sure that the schedule is transparent and predictable for the public commission, and it specifically identifies dates that accommodate holiday schedules. As we have done, this calendar year is proposing that we're meeting on the second and fourth Mondays of every month, that the work sessions are on the third Monday of every month. The exceptions are Mondays that are holidays, and then in August and December, we have one regular meeting on the second Monday of the month. There's a suggested motion to approve the 2025 commission meeting schedule as presented. And we'll note that we're having conversations about the rules resolution and the commission schedule at a work session on January 21st. And that following that, if there are changes to the commission meeting schedule, we will bring that to the 27th for approval of a amended or different schedule.
I would move to approve the 2025 commission meeting schedule as presented, with the exception of October 13th, which I believe we as a group acknowledged Indigenous Peoples' Day was going to be recognized as a holiday. So modifying to reflect October 14th as the commission meeting day.
Okay.
All right. So we have a motion to approve the 2025 commission meeting with the exception of October 13th. Okay, we have a motion to approve the 2025 commission meeting schedule with the exception of October 13th. And we have a second. Is there any discussion on that? Would anyone like to make public comment on this motion?
Yes.
Hearing nothing, we'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Number 3 on the action other calendar is the election of officers. Alex Smith again.
Right. Commissioners, typically at the first meeting of your calendar year, you elect the officers for the commission. Again, this is an action other. We are proposing that the elected offices be effective as of the next commission meeting. So the next commission meeting, the president, vice president, and secretary would take on their duties. The positions to be filled are the president, who presides at meetings, signs documents, and sets agendas with fellow commissioners. The vice president, who performs the duties of the president when he or she is absent or is assigned from time to time. And the secretary, who ensures recording of minutes, motions, and resolutions are followed as well. And I have suggested motion for you all once you've had the conversation and chosen the various officers.
I would move to appoint the following Port of Olympia commission officers to serve during calendar year 2025. Commissioner Basavada as president, Commissioner Sanders as vice president, and Commissioner Tong as secretary.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to appoint the following to appoint the following Port of Olympia commission officers to serve during the calendar year of 2025. Commissioner Basavada as president, Commissioner Sanders as vice president, and Commissioner Tong as secretary. Is there any further discussion amongst the commission? Yes.
I obviously think Commissioner Ayala has been a great president. I think that you have given us steady leadership in tumultuous times, and I very much respect the way that you have served. I also am super excited about our 3 new commissioners and the diligence that you guys have brought to this office and doing the work and making hard decisions. And I'm excited about your leadership moving forward.
And I share your excitement. Thank you. Thank you. All right, any other discussion? Is there any public comment on the motion to appoint commission officers?
I think Commissioner Basavada.
Well, I was just to say I'm grateful for the nomination, and I will strive to run the meetings with the courtesy and kindness that I think both Commissioner Ayala and Commissioner Harding. I'm picturing the Christmas and Commissioner Harding have demonstrated. It's been a really good role model for us.
All right, is there Carla, would you like to make public comment?
Mainly, I have a question, and that is, can an officer serve a consecutive term of the same office? Because I think Commissioner Tong is the secretary now. Is that correct? So is that a problem? Is that part of the commission's?
I don't see anything in the resolution.
I don't recall any.
When there was a three people.
Oh, it was always all three, yeah.
So I just had that question because I thought, she's done that, had that position for this past year. So I don't know if that's something that can move forward or not, but maybe you've answered the question. So thank you.
All right, any other discussion? We called for the vote yet? Let's do that now then. We have a motion to appoint the following Port of Olympia Commission officers to serve during calendar year 2025. Commissioner Vasavada as president, Commissioner Sanders as vice president, and Commissioner Tong as secretary. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Congratulations, everybody. Great job. So we're gonna switch at the next meeting. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right, then moving on. Moving on to the advisory calendar. Airport master plan adoption and comprehensive scheme inclusion. Chris Pellini, Airport Senior Manager, you have the floor, sir.
Good evening, commissioners. Thank you. We're talking about the airport master plan update tonight. Again, I'm Chris Pellini, the airport senior manager. Tonight's presentation is advisory only. No action is required. Tonight also begins the 30-day public comment period for the final public comments, which will be incorporated into the master plan update document, and I'll talk more about that later on in the presentation. This is the current schedule. On November 25th, I gave a briefing to the commission. Tonight's presentation or advisory presentation will be similar to that one, so I'll try to, for the sake of time, breeze through some of the slides, but I wanted to incorporate them into tonight's presentation for reference as needed. And then as mentioned, the public comment period starts today. And then one change from your agenda packets or emailed to you is the meeting for the public hearing and action has been moved to March 10th to allow for more time for the completion of the SEPA checklist that was mentioned earlier this evening. So as a reminder, what is an airport master plan? It is a comprehensive study of an airport that describes the short, medium, and long-term 20-year development plans that meet future aviation demand. This is referenced through the advisory circular 150-57B-6B, which is the airport master planning advisory circular from the FAA. Master plans are completed about every 7 to 10 years as directed by the FAA. And it's a document that looks at the capital improvement projects and land use compatibility to meet the above objective. What it is not, it's not intended to solve airport management, operations, or maintenance issues. It's not a business plan or marketing plan or a guarantee of funding. And it's not a binding document, which means even after it's been adopted, it can be changed by the commission and in coordination with the FAA. And it's not a document that sets policies or rates. But master plans are in fact different than other master plans. The FAA master plans are because they are 90% grant funded by the Federal Aviation Administration. Our particular master plan was actually 100% grant funded because it was during the COVID era. But because they're grant funded by the FAA, they have to meet the grant assurances of the FAA and meet their standards. So FAA planning grants are funded by airport user fees and not by tax revenue. And as mentioned, the FAA master plan process is directed by the above referenced advisory circular, which also references about 90 other advisory circulars and guidance documents. The airport master plan process is significantly guided by the Federal Aviation Administration as the regulatory and funding agency. So essentially, this is different than several other master plans that the public entities go through because the FAA, because you have to meet certain FAA design standards, to meet the purposes as set forth by the master plan itself, which is to meet current and future aviation demand. And so therefore, it's a more rigid in structure on how you move forward in the process. As mentioned, there are about 39 FAA grant assurances specifically. And again, just to reiterate from prior comments, That includes meeting aviation demand current and future, which may actually include commercial aviation. And just to address comments, I wanted to just point out assurance number 22A relating to public use airports being open to all users, stating an airport sponsor will make the airport available as an airport for public use on reasonable terms and without unjust discrimination to all types, kinds, and classes of aeronautical activities, including commercial aeronautical activities offering services to the public at the airport. And I also would like to point out, however, though, contrary to some confusion that took place back in around 2021, early 2022, Olympia Regional Airport is not being considered to augment Seattle-Tacoma International Airport's capacity. So in summary, the FAA has designated the Olympia Regional Airport as part of the National Air Transportation System, known as the National Plan of Integrated Airports, or NIPIAS. This is why we receive grant funding every year. Airport land acquisition and infrastructure, which we have received both, were funded by using FAA grants. As a condition, we are obligated to support aviation and future aviation demand as directed by the FAA regulations and grant assurances. So what this means is because we've received money from the FAA to buy land as well as for infrastructure improvements, if we ever were to suggest not having the airport anymore, we would have to not only pay back the funds under the grant assurances for the infrastructure improvements, but also for the value of the land as well. Therefore, the airport master plan update process is heavily guided by the FAA to ensure we comply with FAA regulations and take the necessary steps to support current and future aviation needs. I won't go line by line through this guiding principles document. This was shared previously, but again, I just wanted to reference this in today's for public reference. Examples of eligible projects and non-eligible projects. You can see them listed up there. The main projects that are in the current master plan that'll be coming for commission consideration will be runway and taxiway rehabilitation projects. Not a new runway, but just to rehabilitate the existing runways that we have and the taxiways that support them, as well as some apron as well. Examples of non-eligible projects would be development for exclusive use or industrial park development, landscaping, maintenance equipment. So again, the summary of the goals for master plan is to invite public involvement, evaluate environmental considerations, document existing conditions, and then prepare for future development and facility requirements, which will meet FAA design standards and future aviation demand. This includes preparing for emerging aviation technologies, which include electronic and hydrogen aircraft, fuels, vertical takeoff and landing or VTOL air taxi, noise reduction technologies, among others. And then plan for and demonstrate airport financial self-sufficiency. So I wanted to just kind of quickly go over the public engagement process. Again, this is the IAP2 chart, which comes from the International Association for Public Participation. This shows how a normal planning process would go. All 5 of these columns would normally be incorporated into a public involvement process. However, as I mentioned previously, because the FAA airport master plans are so rigid to meet FAA forecast demands as well as FAA design standards and other restrictions, airport master plans only actually involve columns 1 and column 2. We do involve the top half of column 3, the involved portion, but we cannot involve the bottom half of the involved portion. So therefore we don't highlight that one because we can't incorporate it in its entirety. Community involvement, and I'm actually paraphrasing this from the Advisory Circular for Master Planning. Airport owner and public participation is most crucial during the early phases of the master planning process, so that ideas, concerns, and feedback can be considered during the alternatives analysis process before final decisions are made. Technical and community involvement consisted of technical advisory committee meetings, open house events with the public, plus there was a Q&A with the airport manager at the time, progress presentations to the Port Commission, and of course, feedback has been and continues to be available through the that email address above. This was the original technical advisory committee staff, advisory committee members. As you can see, they were not just aviation professionals. These are people from multiple agencies, entities, including WashDOT Division of Fish and Wildlife. We have the City of Olympia on there. The POCAC was represented, City of Tumwater, among others. There were 4 different technical advisory committees during 2021 and 2022. And I'm going to reiterate this later, but the substantial portion of the airport master planning process took place in 2021 and 2022. So as we look at the dates on this slide and the next slide, I just wanted to point out that the airport master plan went through the planning process in 21 and 22, and essentially was just placed on the pause button until now. So as you look at these dates, they coincide with when the majority of the master planning process took place. These are the public outreach events that took place. There was 4 public open houses that took place. And during those open houses, each of the sections that were going through the process were then shared. There was diagrams that were presented to the public. The public was allowed to engage and talk about the pros and cons of each of the alternatives that were actually considered during the master planning process. And then again, there was a 5th conversation with the airport manager that happened in early 2023, which I think was about a 3-hour meeting. And it was again a back and forth Q&A with the public during that time as well. And then of course, there was 2 additional presentations made to the commission in 2022 and 2023. And again, copies of all these presentations can be found on the web address shown on that slide. If you go to the port's website, click on the airport and then click on the master plan, you can scroll down and click on that button to view the videos and other supporting documents for those presentations. So as I was saying, oh, sorry.
Are we waiting till the end?
Go ahead. You go ahead.
Okay. Thank you for your candor about how you see the engagement process relating to sort of the consultation we do for the master planning. You've provided us links to all these presentations. We've heard from the community some concern that it's kind of a new commission, a bigger commission, people who weren't here at the table then. Do you have any way you can share with us public input that was received into the process to sort of catch us up?
Absolutely, I could. The presentations are available. If you had certain topics that you would like that feedback on, it might condense the amount of information that I would be presenting. Because it would be,
presentation for our staff products, right? Did we ever compile the sort of input we received from the public in any way?
it was definitely recorded in some way. I would have to get back to you on how that was actually recorded, whether it was just, comments during, informally during the public open houses, or if there was something more formal than that, but it was incorporated. But the purpose of those public houses was to show the public what was being considered at the time and to receive their feedback. And at that time, in the areas where it could, where the FAA allows for it, because it doesn't, fall under minimum standard requirements or something, would actually be those public comments would actually be considered in some of the decision making at that time. So there's how that was recorded, I don't know, but that depth involvement did take place.
Or who considered the public input in the decision making at the time? Was it a consultant we hired? Was it the TAC? Was it staff?
It would be it would be all of them actually, but I can reach out to our consultant to see how that was recorded and if there's some sort of summary that I might be able to provide.
Was Warren in the position or was Rudy at the, Warren was?
Commissioners, all the comments were recording, all the postcards that were submitted during the public comment periods were taken. They're all recorded, they're all available and provided to you.
Okay, thank you.
And I had a semi-related question, and I think it's a good time to ask, is just the email that you mentioned these comments are going to, who has access to that and where is that feedback going?
It goes to multiple people. It goes to our consultant as well as members of the port, myself and Mr. Hendrickson and a couple others.
And will a record of that be available at some point?
Those are being incorporated into an appendix, which I'll talk about shortly. Yes.
But I mean before that.
So the,
I'm sorry.
Are we not going to see it until the plan appendix is complete, or is there a way for us to see that feedback as it comes in?
I think we could. Yeah, I think we can. It's significant, just to warn you. So it would be everything from 2021 till what's happening now for the next 30 days.
does the appendix include all the public comments for this 30 days, or does it include the public comments from before and?
So the appendix is actually already on our website, and but it's technically in draft form. So we're going to add all of the comments from tonight through the next 30 days that weren't incorporated. So what you will see in the appendix that's on the website now will be everything up until we posted. So
That's a great, never assume we all know exactly what's on the website. So it sounds like you're saying the appendix of the master plan
that for public, and it's titled Public Involvement.
that's called public involvement should have information that's responsive to the concerns we've been hearing that does summarize sort of the input that was received.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sorry, that I didn't know the direction of your question. Sorry. Yeah, that would be a lot easier to just share that.
That's a good resource, as well as Warren, I think, could be a good resource if we needed a summary, given that he managed that process before. If there was additional questions that you had after reviewing the appendix.
Thank you.
And that's what I was saying. If there's certain topics that you were curious what the public feedback was on, we might be able to help us narrow down the thirds. But so with that, that kind of falls perfectly into here. So where are we at? We are currently at, and have been for the last 2 years, at the end of the master planning process. As I mentioned before, we went extensively through and again substantially finished the airport master plan in 2022. And then we essentially just hit the pause button for 2 reasons. We hit the pause button because we were hoping that the habitat conservation plan, which is separate from this master planning process, would be completed. And the purpose for that was because we were hoping to possibly incorporate some planning into the alternative section of the document based on if the habitat conservation plan was approved, and then going to the FAA with some of our requests on as a result of that ACP being adopted. So that was that was the one cause. Another cause was because we had some turnover and some changes in staffing here at the port. And so it was placed on pause and for about 2 years until I came on board here in April. So again, so this process started in 2021. It was substantially completed in 2022. And then we hit the pause button for about 2 years until now. And so that is where we're at. And then here's the individual sections and the status of each of those after that 2-year process. Chapters 1 through 6, these are the primary documents of the master plan. You'll notice they're all in final draft complete form, except for chapters 2 and 5. Those are the only 2 chapters the FAA actually approves. They don't actually approve the individual other chapters, and those have both been approved by the FAA already. And then you have the appendix of the master plan, and you'll see we were just talking about appendix number 1, which is the public involvement summary. And that is also the only one that's still in draft with a final draft in process, because again, that won't be final until after this 30-day comment period. The rest of the appendices are complete. This was the preferred alternative. I won't go into detail on this like I did last time, but I do want to point out just once again, in this planning period, there are no plans to expand the physical footprint of the airport, no plans to extend the runways, and no plans to add runways. This is the emerging technology section. Again, I went through this in detail last time, but based on some commission feedback, I wanted to share some neat things that are happening in the industry that are pretty exciting. Again, the emergency technology section addresses electric aircraft, electric vehicles, and how they might be charged at the airport, but also alternative fuels such as hydrogen as well. And so I just wanted to point out some of the exciting things that have been happening in the last couple of years. In fact, I do want to point out, I want to make sure that I say this accurately. When I said that no changes were made to the chapters or the appendices for the last 2 years, there was one change, and it's minor and it's not specific to our airport. And what it was is we made some updates to the emerging technologies appendix. And that's only because in the last 2 years, while the master plan's been on hold, there's actually been some updates in the technology that's advanced in those 2 years. But again, that's just to address the industry as a whole. It wasn't impacting the airport specifically. So there will be a change from what people saw 2 years ago. I think there's like a 1 or 2 paragraphs that changed. But again, just some exciting things that are happening in the industry based on that emerging technology and how we might see those changes come to the Port of Olympia. In May of 2022, Joby Aviation announced they received FAA Part 135 air carrier certification for their electric aircraft. And then on June 5th of this past year, 2024, Archer Aviation also received Part 135 air carrier certification for their electric aircraft. I wanted to point this out because a lot of times when people hear the words commercial aviation, they think, oh no, big Boeing 747, lots of noise and pollution and all that good stuff. But these 2 pictures that I just showed you up here are of what would be considered commercial service at the airport if they were to come to Olympia. So commercial service isn't always big 747s. It can be small emerging technology, electric aircraft. that support our community. And then this aircraft would not fall into the commercial aircraft category, but I also just wanted to share some exciting things and trends that are happening in the industry that would potentially impact our airport. This is the Pipistrel aircraft that got certified, got airworthiness exemption from the FAA on March 4th of last year. This aircraft is exciting because it fits that flight training environment market. Right now, with the technology that we have with batteries, the batteries, unlike fuel, they stay the same weight doesn't matter how long the flight is. So with aircraft that use fuel, as the flight goes on, it burns fuel, the airplane gets lighter, it flies faster, and can carry more payload. With batteries, the weight stays the same. And so there's some shortcomings there. However, with flight training, the average flight time is about an hour to an hour and a half, which would be perfect for an aircraft with batteries. And so we're excited to see how this aircraft does in the flight training environment, because it kind of is suited there. And then from there, we can see how it might advance to other opportunities. So for those of us aviation people that like to geek out on this stuff, it's pretty exciting to see where these emerging technologies might take us in the very near future. So next steps. Again, today starts the beginning of that 30-day public comment period. And again, just to reiterate, that 30-day public comment period is primarily to inform the public about the master plan update. However, at the request of the public, we provided this 30-day public comment period. And what's unique about this 30-day period is that these comments will be incorporated and memorialized in that appendix of the airport master plan. This doesn't mean that after the 30 days or even after the commission adopts the master plan, the public can't make comments to, port staff about the airport master plan, but these comments will be incorporated into that document and memorialized there. And then again, a change on tonight's presentation from what was emailed to you, again, allowing more time to make sure we complete that SEPA checklist. We will come back for the commission on March 10th, tentatively for the public hearing and to take action. And again, just as a reminder, the MPU it's a living document. It's providing a series of recommendations based on the airport's infrastructure, inventory, forecasts, and needs. And therefore, the commission's role with this living document is to review and approve each project before any master plan update projects are implemented. As a result, the commission can be assured they have oversight and guidance in the direction of the airport. And then, of course, public involvement will occur during the NEPA-SEPA process for each project. As conditions and opportunities changed, direct port staff in coordination with the FAA to update the master plan's airport layout plan documents. And with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you might have.
All right, any more questions or comments for Chris?
Chris, thank you so much for that information. I just want to share with you that I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to go and tour the airport with Commissioner Tong. We were able to go out to the airport and spend maybe about 2 hours out there where we actually taxied the runway and saw the lighting, saw the taxiway signage needs, and things like that regarding the needs of the airport. So I appreciate the time that you invested in both of us being able to tour. And I'm excited about the electrification and excited about all the work you're doing at the airport. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you both for taking the time for that tour.
Yes, it was an excellent tour, and like Maggie, I'm very excited about electrification and just switching away from fossil fuels. We're gonna get there.
All right, thank you. Any other comments, questions?
I just have one more follow-up, also from kind of what we're hearing from the public, concern about how SEPA fits in and the level of environmental review that's consistent with this stage of planning. So you don't have to answer right now. I didn't prep you for this question, but if you could come back before, so in our next meeting, if you could just come back and give a few slides so that we understand the interaction with SEPA and environmental review. Would my commission support that? That would be helpful.
Absolutely.
All right, thank you. Is there any public comment? Does anybody wish to give public comment on the airport master plan adoption? Ms. Witt?
I've been pretty occupied with just trying to read through the documents of the master plan update. So my comment's going to be pretty incomplete, but many parts of the draft master plan document that I've read contain information that's outdated, incomplete, erroneous, and misleading. It'll take far more than 3 minutes to list everything that I've found and the problems, but I thought at least that it might be good to start with the history, because I know a lot of the staff, including the airport manager and other staff, don't know the history of the airport. During the past several decades, the Olympia Airport has undergone an incremental expansion. Environmental review of expansion projects has occurred in piecemeal fashion. That is a project at a time. They've done individual reviews. Projects have included property buyouts to accommodate shift and extension of the main runway, runway strengthening of the main runway, larger hangars for larger corporate aircraft, enhanced navigational aids, and taxiway changes to increase airport capacity. The draft master plan update continues this piecemeal approach to airport development and environmental review, according to what I'm reading in the master plan. It outlines, proposes, and promotes a new turf runway, more aircraft hangars, primarily to accommodate private users and increase the numbers of based aircraft, an enlarged terminal, 500 parking spaces and room for more for commercial aviation parking, vertiports for air taxis, and even an aircraft de-icing area. This master plan update even mentions that a runway extension to over 7,000 feet would be needed in order for the airport to accommodate larger commercial aircraft. Now, I am aware that a previous airport manager mentioned in a meeting to Tumwater that the airport would likely want to extend the runway to 6,000 feet to accommodate larger aircraft. But this is the first time I'd even heard mention of the 7,000 feet, and that's concerning. The master plan update also erroneously states that the airport is located 4 miles from Olympia. Actually, the southern border of Olympia lies less than 2 miles from the airport. And a high-density urban village development is located in that area directly under both approach and departure flight paths. When these aircraft fly, they often shake windows, rattle walls, particularly the helicopters. The draft master plan updates forecasts are outdated and illogical. They don't reflect the impact of flight training, recreational flights, military, low-flying aircraft, often flying in circles over nearby residential neighborhoods, schools, and parks. And I would like to mention here that a newly developed in the last year approach path for the Olympia Airport goes directly over Pioneer Elementary School. And there are a lot of people in that area that are very concerned.
And Ms. Witt, can we wrap this up, please?
You know, I will wrap it up in a written statement, because I could go on, and I understand that that you have other things that you need to attend to, but I would like to discuss the opportunity for public input, because we were told that the decision about what would be included in the master plan update was made several years ago. The comments that we make now really won't affect the content of the master plan, that these comments will only be memorialized in an appendix, and that simply does not seem right. What was included several years ago was input from a technical advisory committee in which community, environmental groups, and neighborhood groups were not allowed to be on that committee.
Thank you. And we heard his comments this evening, and we did hear some. So thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment on the airport master plan? Wolfsburg?
Right. Well, I'm always concerned about process. One thing I've noticed, and I don't really know how this works, but in the past, how were people notified about these open public meetings and open houses and so forth. 2021, we were still really in COVID. In 2022, a lot of people weren't going to public meetings. So I don't know, were these on Zoom? I didn't attend them. And how are people notified today of the public comment period, the 30 day? I would still like to see that extended. I don't think it's adequate. And particularly with regards to the SEPA checklist, I think we all need more time. I am very concerned too about the assurances of the FAA, and this is a little bit separate, but the assurance 22A that Mr. Paolini discussed, and that's something that you've heard, I think, before, that every time the FAA gives the port money, you as commissioners are obligated to the FAA for something like 20 years. So you lose control of the airport. And when he says that, you have oversight and guidance, I really want to know to what degree you have oversight and guidance if the FAA is really in charge and they have all those 39 assurances. I think that's something really to consider when you take money, even if it's for just this master plan update. Would it not be better to have more control than to allow the FAA to tell you what to do for our community? So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wolfsburg.
Cezanne has his hand raised.
Mr. Cezanne, you have the floor. If you're speaking, we don't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. Well, my concern is that the plan indicates that there's going to be an expansion of flights at the airport. Even the current level of flights most likely is a health hazard to many living in the flight path. The negative environmental and health impacts of our air traffic are well known. Plans that would lead to expanded aircraft takeoffs and landings at the Olympia Airfield are, in my view, unacceptable. I think that the commissioners need to fully understand these plans and make the necessary changes prior to the approval of the AMPU. Building out infrastructure for environmentally clean air operations is a step in the right direction. But until we have made the transition to clean air travel, increasing air traffic is irresponsible and I believe a disservice to the community. We're seeing environmental tragedies becoming ever more frequent. The fires currently ravaging LA are a reminder of the devastating consequences of global warming that we are experiencing. Environmental protection should be the top priority when considering how we manage the properties that we are entrusted with going forward. I urge the commissioners to reject projects at the airport that would encourage increased air traffic. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cezanne. Anyone else like to make public comment on the airport master plan? All right, hearing none. Thank you, Mr. Paolini. And was there any other questions or comments from the commission?
I just have one more request for follow-up when staff come back, because the public communication documents I see say no runway extension is planned with current alternatives of the master plan update. And I heard testimony of concern about runway expansion. Is that something, Christopher, you can address right now?
I would love to, thank you. So in a master planning process, you explore all the different alternative options. So when you look through the chapters, the chapters in the master plan actually include all the alternatives that were considered or looked at. In those alternatives, extending the runway was one of those alternatives. The alternative, as I showed you, at least the diagram portion of the alternative that was actually selected as the preferred alternative does not include the extension of the runway. So for this planning period, there are no plans to extend the runway.
So what you mean is it is an alternative, but it is not designated as a preferred alternative?
It was an alternative that was explored. So when you do a master planning process, the FAA essentially, and I'm just going to kind of just make this short for you, that the FAA says, money's not an option. What is the best way to move forward with development of the airport to support current and future aviation demand? And they don't want money to be an option because they want to make sure that you're meeting FAA design standards and the forecasted demand for that airport. And chapter 2 is that forecasted demand. And so as they looked at different alternatives, they look at, okay, here's one alternative to meet that future demand. Maybe there might be commercial service down the road that might need larger aircraft or more aircraft or so forth, depending on the population growth in the area. The one alternative that was considered but not selected as the preferred, which meaning the one that we base all our decisions moving forward off of, was the extension of extending the runway to, I don't remember if it was 7,000 feet or not. I want to quote that, but that was a explored alternative that was not the preferred alternative that is now being considered for what we're going to be making our decisions off moving forward. So you will see that reference in the document that was explored but not selected.
Explored but not selected. And when you return to us, can you let me know, can you advise me on whether the Port of Olympia, not whether it's a good business decision, but whether we would have the authority to stop the sale of leaded fuels at the Port of Olympia? Thank you.
Any other comments, questions?
I thought you did a great job with the presentation and I liked the what is it not section. I think there's other areas of our presentations we could use that. It was helpful.
Thank
you. All right, thank you. Good evening, Chris. I mean, go ahead. Yeah,
I'm not going to be that friendly as a chair.
I'd just like to say that one of the issues with airport planning has been an issue of public trust. The public has been told things and that didn't happen. When the airport runway was extended, at that time, there was an auditorium full of concerned people who questioned, well, are you now going to want to strengthen the runway? And people were told publicly in that meeting, no, the runway will never be extended or strengthened, that would not be financially feasible. 2 years later, they started a project of strengthening that runway. So what I'm talking about is an airport expansion, airport projects that are creeping and leading towards growth on a piece by piece basis. And we really need to look, if we had some finality, like it's going to stop here, that would be helpful, but it doesn't. It's an ongoing expansion is what we've seen. Thank you.
okay, moving on. But inlet remediation, execution of second remedial action grant. Jonathan Wolf, Environmental Manager, you have the floor, sir.
Thank you. I am John Wolf, Environmental Manager for the Port. I'm here with an advisory presentation, and hopefully in 2 weeks we'll be back seeking permission for the Executive Director to sign the agreement with the Department of Ecology for the second remedial action grant for Budd Inlet. So I know you've seen this slide many times, but just as a reminder, the Port has an agreement with the Department of Ecology to follow the MOTCA process, the Model Toxics Control Act. It's a state process to determine the depth, breadth, and concentration of contamination in Budd Inlet, and then use that information to come up with an engineer a design for cleanup. So we're at roughly stage 3 of that process. It's the science stage, I call it. That science that we collect now will then go into inform the design for the cleanup. So in 2015, the Port applied for a remedial action grant. The state has funds for entities like the Port who have to do cleanup under the MOTCA process. Port applied for and received $4.2 million to spend. Now there's a 50% match, so it's actually $2.1 million from Ecology and $2.1 million in a Port match. That was closed out at the end of last year. In 2022, the Port applied for a second remedial action grant with a total to spend of $12.5 million. So again, there's a 50% match. So Ecology is providing $6.25 million. The Port has a matching obligation of $6.25 million. And we intend to start spending those funds as soon as the agreement is signed. So that would be beginning of February. The deliverables for the second remedial action grant include the pre-remedial design investigation report, that is the sampling, collecting the samples, and then presenting the results of that sampling. The engineering design report, which is essentially the cleanup proposal, and then grant and project administration, which would be some of my time. So as I said, we have a $6.25 million match requirement for this $12.5 million grant. It's currently in the form of a state legislative appropriation. I apologize for the misspelling there. It's an appropriation through the Department of Commerce, the Washington Department of Commerce. We have roughly $1.4 million remaining of the $2 million appropriation, and then the remaining would be in port dollars. So this year, we have budgeted to spend $4 million on the Bud Inlet cleanup. Of that 4 million, 2 million would be reimbursed by the Department of Ecology Remedial Action Grant. 1.4 million would be in the form of the appropriation, and then $600,000 in port dollars. We are seeking another appropriation from the state legislature this session, and also we continue looking for grant opportunities all the time. And I do want to point out that in the agreement, it says this is through June of 2025, but that's because they can't write the agreement beyond this biennium. They do acknowledge that as hard as I try, I'm not going to spend $12.5 million by June, so that can be extended as needed. So the next step will be to bring a motion to the commission next meeting, seeking approval for the executive director to sign the agreement for the second remedial action grant. And then shortly after that, I'm going to spend some money. So questions and comments?
You mentioned your time, the $400,000, is your time also matched to the grant or?
Yes, so we can, how do I put this? We can bill my time if it's associated with the agreed order. So like reviewing documents, looking at maps, speaking to the consultants, then I can bill Ecology for that, and that would be included in that 2 million reimbursement from Ecology.
That's a different answer.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's not then our match, it's being reimbursed. It doesn't matter.
Any other questions?
This is maybe more for Tabor and or Karen, but this is a humongous investment, both from the state and the port. And I still talk to people who aren't aware that we're doing this. And I think that it's a community challenge as far as where people get their news, but I just want to acknowledge what an investment this commission and this team has made in remediating legacy pollution. And as we talk about the future of the port, I think this is just such a great standing off point. And I know Karen and Tabor are doing a great job of getting the word out, and let's just keep shouting it from the rooftops, because we talk a lot about things we can get better at, but this is something we are executing on. So it's exciting. You're spending the money, John.
Yes. Thank you.
All right, any other comments? Let's see if there's anyone like to give public comment. Anyone from the public?
Raised hand by John Cezanne.
John Cezanne? Yes, yeah, there you are. You have the floor, sir. And again, we can't hear you if you're talking.
Okay, there we go. You got me now?
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, I see the next phase, we're going to have an engineering study or explanation of, or proposal how to do the cleanup, but I don't see any scientific study that would be, explain scientifically how best to restore the inlet. So it seems like we need to have probably both. Anyway, that's just my comment.
All right, thank you, Mr. Cezanne. Anyone else? Ms. Wolfsburg?
Yeah, and I think that this cleanup is really a great project. However, some things I think are being overlooked, and I want to get some assurance that they are not going to be overlooked. And that is, one of the things is, if you really want to clean up Bud Inlet, we really have to look at all these uncontrolled sources that are going in there. And it can be from former dredging projects that were put on top of the Port Peninsula that could be leaching into the inlet with the tide. It could be storm drains. And I just want the assurance that those things are going to be included, and those are scientific analysis. And I know the Department of Ecology has been trying to study this. And from one of the folks that I've heard from who spoke with a person at Ecology, they really couldn't tell where this pollution was coming from. But they recognize there's an uncontrolled source coming into the inlet. So as much as you do to clean it up with all of these, projects that are on the books right now, if you don't find out where those sources of continual pollution are coming from, it's not going to be cleaned up, right? So I just want an assurance that that is actually going to be looked at very seriously. So core samplings on the land and also the stormwater drains. I mean, they're coming from Olympia as well. So I think that's something we all really should be seriously looking at. So we do have a clean environment when this is all done, and all this money is spent. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wolfsburg. Any other public comment? Anything else from the commission? All right, well, thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you very much.
Moving on, commissioner reports or discussion. Commissioner Tom, do you have anything to report or discuss?
I was just gonna share about the State of Community that Alex mentioned by the Thurston Chamber. It was a great event. I didn't think there was any lobbying really, but there were some great businesses there, and I really enjoyed hearing from all the different mayors about the projects they have going on. And I think it's really relevant to the port that we stay involved and informed of that information.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Sanders, anything?
Yes, the State of Community was awesome, being able to listen to all the mayors talk about what they're working on, what their needs are, what their community is working towards. Just even talking about strengths and weaknesses was really important to listen across all sectors of the municipalities that were present. Also, I toured the airport, which I felt was very informational. Got a history of the airport with Commissioner Tong. And I feel that it's important to note that, you know, the FAA is doing a study out there, you know, working on solar lighting. It's a safety issue. And updating our airport to me is important for the safety of its users. Let's see, and I'm looking forward to the governor's ball. I'm excited for that. And I'm excited to serve this year as vice president. And thank you to everyone here. And I appreciate you all. And we're pulling an amazing team together, and welcome, Mike.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Vasavina?
I'd echo everything Commissioner Sanders said. And also, we heard from Ann Larson, she was the legislative director. She has a different term now at the Department of Enterprise Services, that their request for $25 million for the Deschutes estuary restoration was included in a governor's budget, probably the outgoing governor's budget, but hopefully that's a mark of progress towards the restoration. So I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. All right.
I just wanted to acknowledge a death in our port world from the airport, and I might be butchering her last name, but Samantha Grand Boucher was a helicopter instructor for Glacier, and she had moved to Houston and she died in a helicopter crash. And she made a real impact on one woman I know who took helicopter lessons from her, but getting women into aviation. And so I just wanted to recognize Samantha. She's from Aberdeen, Washington. And yeah. And then my quote of the day is from Khalil Gibran, who's one of my favorite poets. And he said, "I have learned silence from the talkative, tolerance from the intolerant, and kindness from the unkind. Yet strange, I am ungrateful to those teachers."
Thank you very much for that. All right, moving on. Is there any other business? All right, hearing none, we'll move on to meeting announcements. Executive Director Smith, you're back.
Yeah, apologies, this was Executive Director heavy tonight. That. All right, upcoming meetings on Tuesday, January 21st. We have a commission work session at 3:30 here in this building, in this room. Note that it is Tuesday because Monday is a holiday. Also on the 21st, there is a Citizens Advisory Committee meeting at 5:30 p.m. here. Okay. And then on the 27th is your next regular business meeting. And then on Monday, February 10th is the first business meeting of February.
Very good. Questions, comments on the meeting announcement? Is there anything else good for the order? I would just like to say that it's been an honor to serve as president for the past year. And I'm highly looking forward to this year. I think it's been an outstanding year coming up. And would you like to gavel us out?
Oh, thank you. Duties as assigned as vice chair. This meeting is adjourned.